A year ago today, I saw my now ex-husband for the very last time, although it was still about a month before we knew that we were separating. We separated before we knew we were separating. He took this job in the Pacific Northwest at the company's headquarters, and he was going to get trained for 2 months before moving to the Seattle office where he was going to take on this new career. I stayed here in Utah while I was making plans to follow him and his dreams. He made this decision without my consent, but because I had to support my husband in his decisions, and understanding that doing so would require me to leave my now 16-year-old here behind in Utah with their dad and with their friends, this was the sacrifice I was willing to make this marriage work. I stayed here in Utah to work on grad school and to sell the house and to pack everything up, and I would meet him in Seattle after Labor Day. Well, while I was going to grad school, I was driving up to the University of Utah every day. I was taking a job as a drama teacher at a community center to help me pay for tuition when I had this huge faith crisis. My faith crisis came to a head, and I started questioning things that I'd never really had the courage to question before. By the end of July, I realized that I could no longer stay a member of the Mormon Church. So I made that decision. I called my husband while he was out of state, and I let him know I was leaving the church, because that's a big deal. And we decided at the end of July that we just couldn't make a mixed faith marriage work, because our marriage was so rocky as it was. We had gone to therapy the night before he left for the Pacific Northwest. We had been married 10 years, and 10 of those 10 years were really, really difficult. The only thing that kept us married was a commitment we made over the altars of the temple. We had promised to each other and to God that we were going to stop at nothing to make this marriage work. However, I came to realize that what happens with marriage is this: two people maybe have the same goals when they meet, or in our case, we're vulnerable and horny. We need to get married before we even know each other, because you can't explore sexuality outside of marriage. So we were married before we even knew each other. And then we started to grow. And as we grew this way. We grew apart. And we got to this point where I think it would have taken a freaking miracle to keep us together. When I made that decision to leave the Mormon Church, it was like a weight had been lifted off of me. I didn't have to stay married to this man anymore, because I was no longer afraid of being punished by God. I was no longer afraid of breaking temple covenants, because the temple covenants weren't real. I had to come to these conclusions after a lot of study, of research, of critical thinking, until my shelf just broke. And I realized I no longer had to white knuckle my way along the iron rod to get to the celestial kingdom, damn it. Because that's kind of how it was for 10 of those 10 years of marriage. July of last year was a huge month for me. A lot of changes happened, and they're still continuing to happen. I'm grateful that I don't have that fear of being damned by some God I don't know for not making a dysfunctional marriage work, one that we were rushed into before we even knew each other. I'm grateful that I had the chance to learn who I am, to learn what I like, and that I had the opportunity to explore and learn more about myself, and to not make the same mistakes I did before. Because marriage is a huge commitment, it's a huge decision, and you need to know the person you're going to marry before you marry them.